It's interesting because Iran has always saying that they're not going for a nuclear weapon. They've always gone for civil use of an uranium enrichment. That's the point that Iran has been putting up. And we have Vance, who has been saying that, well, we don't want anything to do with nuclear weapons or anything that could lead to a nuclear weapon. Well, we'll come to that, but also let's come back to the Strait of Hormuz. Now, again, as I said, it's impacting not just the region, but the world. Initially, Europeans, they have rejected any kind of part in participation or in this war with the U.S. And if you look at the Strait of Hormuz, it was not at all just blocked by Iran. There were some ships that were sailing. It includes the French ship, it includes the Japanese, of course, Chinese and Indian. So consider the fact that now the U.S. is now blocking and has said it's blocking not just Indian, but every ship now. Do you think that will get any kind of reaction from European, or how do you think they will be reacting to this?
Well, two things. First, the Europeans continue to talk about how they could contribute to keeping the Strait of Hormuz open. The French and the British in particular are talking about who's going to lead the effort. I heard this only today, in fact, from Europe. The United States has not said it will block every ship. What Central Command has said is they will ensure that those ships that are coming through are not coming through to Iran. And so if it's a French ship or a Chinese ship, for that matter, if they're going to one of the Arab ports, they're not going to be prevented from entering. So therefore, the key question becomes, first, can the United States Navy ensure that the mines are cleared? I think the answer is yes. Can the United States Navy prevent or even destroy the IRGC's small naval boats? I think, again, the answer is yes. Can the United States Navy ensure that those ships that wish to enter the strait in order to go to the Arab side of the strait will be able to do so? Again, I think the answer is yes. I think the Iranians are really suffering from a very serious illusion that somehow they are still on an equal basis with the United States. It's just not the case.
But even before the war, is it not that the U.S. have also said that they were underestimating Iran because looking at how far they have stretched, Iran has been very much resilient. On the other hand, there's also the Houthis. You know, they have also threatened, if at all, they come into play and block, of course, the Bab el-Mandab, which is another important strait. So it's not that Iran has just that. They also have the Houthis, which, of course, U.S. wanted them to stop all the fundings to them, but they are another player in the region.
Well, there's no question about the Houthis and that the Iranians could set them loose. But the Houthis have been very... They really want to get back into a war with the Saudis again or with the Emirates again. Both of those countries have tried to wash their hands of Yemen. And yes, it's true that that Mr. Trump overestimated the American ability to totally destroy Iran. Iran is resilient, but that's not the issue here. The issue isn't Iran's resilience. The issue is, can Iran keep the strait closed? And I think the answer is no, it cannot. Not if the United States determines that the Navy is going to go in there and clear out whatever is necessary in order to let ships operate on the Arabian side of the strait. As long as that's the case, I think it is now the Iranians who are overestimating their ability, just like, quite frankly, we, the United States, underestimated, I should say, Iranian resilience.
Doug, you do say that U.S., if it has the capability, you say that the U.S. has the capability to force Hormuz open with enough resources, but analysts warn that even one damaged American warship could dramatically shift the politics of this war at home. And we also know that earlier polls have shown sharp drop in approval rates of Trump administration too. So it does come across that America's biggest vulnerability in these waters is not military weakness, but maybe public patience. From Washington, from the ground, how do you see the public sentiment being shaped regarding this war?
Well, first of all, remember that in 2000, the USS Cole, a warship, was destroyed in the region, in the Gulf. Essentially, we figure by the Iranians or their proxies. And so I don't think that's going to deter Trump at all. And the same, I think, applies to popular opinion. His opinion polls are very, very low. And he recognizes, of course, that this could be very damaging in the upcoming elections in November. But remember, a week is a long time in politics, and we are 6 months away from those elections. And so, yes, the polls can show what they show, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the outcome. I think what will determine whether the Democrats are as strong as they think they are now, or whether Trump is as strong as he would like to be, very much depends on how this blockade works out, on how this war with Iran is finally ended. Until that happens, who knows? Now, I would also point out one thing. The Defense Department asked Congress for $200 billion for supplemental funding for this war. That means, given that each day of the war has cost about $1 billion or a little more than that, they were thinking of more than 6 months of war. They have now lowered that number to at most 80 billion, which means that it is literally almost a third of what they thought they would be fighting. So we're now talking about perhaps 2 months. If this war ends in 2 months, and I don't know that it will, but if it does, that leaves a lot of time between then and the election, and it depends how the war ends, and that will determine not just who the electoral outcome between Democrats and Republicans. It will determine public opinion generally.
And that's a very important point because, of course, we'll have to see how U.S. is reacting to its own president's decisions that way. But on the other hand, this also means that there is going to be an extremely tough time for the global economy, especially for the Gulf states as well. Do you think there is a way where both the sides can come to the table? We know that Pakistan played a mediator. Do you think any Gulf states, looking at how much damage they can take if this escalates further, will they be willing to go for another talk? And is that possible from the U.S. side? And are they willing to go for it?
Well, again, I think it depends whether the Navy is successful in allowing ships to reach the Arab side of the Strait of Hormuz. To the extent that they can, then oil can come out of the Saudis, it can come out of the Kuwaitis, it can come out of the Qataris, gas can, although there's been a lot of damage, of course, and that's going to take at least a couple of years to repair, but at least there'll be some shipments. So that's one factor. The other factor is how long the Iranians are willing to hold out. And given that in addition to all the damage they've already taken, now they're getting an economic hit. And so whether how serious an economic crisis the world will go through very much depends on how long this blockade lasts. And since we haven't even started, it's going to start tomorrow. Monday, that is, depending on what time it is in my time, East Coast, it'll be in the morning. Iranian time, it's in the evening, and your time as well, obviously. Depending how long that goes on, that will very much determine the state of the world economy. We simply cannot predict what it will be like. I'm convinced that the Navy can do its job. What I don't know, and what no one can predict, is how quickly it can do that job and how the Iranians react to it.
All right. Well, of course, as I said, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out, of course, in the coming day. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast and giving your insights and your perspective to this very, very evolving situation in West Asia. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.